Sadness is an emotion, depression is an illness.
So you are putting up a show for people to
Yes.
not see you weak and not see you depressed.
Yeah.
That doesn't really mean that
Yeah.
someone is not depressed.
I was like very, very new to this whole corporate and all
Right,
of that,
yeah.
and I had to be in a very high stressful environment when I started off my career.
Your pain is just another story for somebody else. Just shut your own mouth, mind your own business,
Yeah.
keep your head low, and do your work.
Yeah. We write letters to those protector figure who is non-existent. We want them to come into our life, protect us from whatever evil that is, but they never show up.
If some woman has to go through that, no, to be a superwoman, I think that's a disgrace on the society.
Yeah. Anna Sebastian losing her life of overworking. I read the letter that the mom wrote.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It could be anybody's mom.
Why is it that someone has to die for someone to feel like, okay, it is actually an issue?
The freedom certain managers give you, the trust certain managers. Some managers would like to know why this is being done.
If one of us are doing some campaign or anything, we make it a point to go up to them and tell them how much we loved it. My team does it so beautifully.
I'm on a call with that person and I am literally on the verge of tears.
Okay.
And this person goes, I have no time for this. We always have this thing where, no, hey, there's an intern, maybe they can do this redundant job. No, your intern needs to be assessed.
Women out there should not have to lose their innocence so early in their lives. Harshni, hi.
Hi, Harshni.
This is how we normally start our conversations, right? In a call or when we are in person. So I'm so happy you're here.
I'm so happy that you can have me here.
Okay, I want to show you a meme, okay?
Okay.
This will pretty much tell why I wanted to have you on this particular episode.
Okay, now I'm scared.
Because this episode is all about mental health and how it affects your career, how it is important that you keep your mental well-being, and how is it going to affect your relationship or relationship with your co-workers and literally everything. My meme will pretty much describe what I thought about when I wanted to have you. So this is the meme. I'm going to just describe the meme for our listeners. So this meme has got two skeletons laughing at each other while they're holding their hands, and the meme reads, when you find someone who's just as dead inside as you are. I don't know if you remember, you actually sent this meme to me on Instagram once, and then we were like,
besides all the dark jokes.
Yes. Yeah, we were like, oh God, this is perfect definition of how two of us are. So we are just here to share based on what our experiences are and what we heard, what we have seen, what we have read. Although we are not professionals, we are just here to give our own perspective on this particular topic. First things first, we want to start with basics, okay? Although there's a lot of awareness about mental well-being and how it is important, a lot of psychologists come out and talk about how important it is to diagnose depression and all of that. Although there's a little bit of awareness out there, but I still feel people are not able to understand what it is. So can we start by describing sadness versus depression?
If you were to ask me and put it in like a simple single line, I would say sadness is an emotion, depression is an illness.
Okay.
So I think that is the fundamental difference between these two. Other than that, depression is very, it's like you stand in the middle of an ocean and all you get is like waves again and again and again. So I think that pretty much explains what depression, whereas sadness is like a rain cloud. It'll pass over you.
Yeah. Oh, so I was sitting there and I was saying, what is sadness and depression? And I couldn't help but think sadness is like you're seeing a bus pull away right in front of your eyes because you're a few seconds late to the bus stop. But you know you'll get the bus in next 10 minutes. During that 10 minutes, you will definitely feel sad and you might even tear up a little bit. You know, okay, I am still going to get a bus in another 10 minutes and I will go to my destination. Whereas depression is like standing in the bus stop for days, for hours, for months, for maybe even years, and you never know whether the bus would come or it would not come.
That's very interesting.
So you start questioning the existence of the bus, and then you are also going on a self-guilt trip saying that, okay, it is my mistake because I missed the bus. And now you are left with no choice but to walk all the way back home. And while you're walking all the way back home, you can't help but think, why am I the only person who has to walk all the way
Yeah.
home while everybody else can travel in a bus? And while you're walking on the road, you see a lot of people waving hands at you and then saying, "Hey, just get over it. You'll get another bus. Maybe tomorrow you'll get another bus." And then you can't help but think, "What, seriously? What
Yeah,
bus are you
yeah.
talking about?"
Depression also has self-pity,
Yeah.
anger, a lot of confusion, all clubbed into this one big ugly ball that you can't just seem to untangle. One
Yeah.
of my favorite movies, I think, is also yours, is Inside Out.
Oh, yeah,
how
yeah.
how these emotions actually have their own emotions.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a beautiful movie, and
Yeah.
kudos to Pixar for pulling it out. So there you see sadness, right?
Correct.
Sadness is very essential for Riley to function. So
Right,
she's
yeah.
a part of Riley. So sadness is a part. Sadness makes joy more important. Joy
Yeah,
more joyous,
yeah,
if I
yeah.
can say that. But depression, not really. It's a ugly ball of everything.
In Inside Out 2, in the next part, when anxiety comes in,
Yeah.
that's the best thing, where anxiety, towards the end of the movie, anxiety kind of feels bad for putting Riley in certain situations, but anxiety just says, "I was only trying to protect her."
Yeah, it was so sad to see so many of us relate to anxiety.
yeah.
But yeah, so I believe mental illness is a form of defense mechanism in sort of people. So, for example, anxiety comes from the fear of, like, am I not being good enough? Am I not being valued enough? So, it is a defense mechanism that we project onto the world. It is a scab onto a deeper wound.
Coming back to sadness versus depression, I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people. Okay, they would just come the next day very sad. Then they'll come and tell me, "You know what? I was so depressed yesterday, bro." And then I'll be like, "What happened?" "So I missed my flight and I was so depressed." And the instant response is, I understand you're frustrated that you missed your flight and you might, but it's not depression, it's just that you're sad.
I also believe, as a society, the overuse of the word depression
Yeah.
has devalued
Yeah,
depression.
yeah. It desensitizes
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Oh man, I have so much work. I'm so depressed. No,
Yeah.
no. So I get it.
When people just start using it as a jargon or as a day-to-day term that they
Yeah.
can fit in their daily conversations, when someone is really going through it,
Yes.
the value of it comes down, and they will just be like, "Oh, it's just depression." You know what?
Yeah.
I've also had depression for a couple of days, and I was all okay.
Yeah.
That's how it's perceived, but it's almost very synonymous to someone who has health issues, maybe a fever or a cold, and they come up to you and then say, "You know what? I have fever and cold. I feel cancerous."
Oh my god, you can't put it right. This is right. I'm not sure how your audience are going to take it, but this is like exactly how I feel when somebody says, I'm so depressed.
Yeah.
Show me the diagnosis. Where are your medications? But yes, the devaluation kind of makes it feel like, okay, am I exaggerating my own problems?
Yeah, right.
So if they feel like depressed over this, what I'm feeling is nothing. We kind of start, comparing ourselves with, their sadness, which is very bad.
Right.
But yeah.
What are the general misconceptions that you think are about women's mental health at work?
At work, I believe whenever you talk to your peers, your colleagues, or your managers, and you say that, I am not feeling for the task or up to the task, immediately they kind of dismiss you, and they say they think that is an excuse for you to not be productive.
Right.
So laziness, I think, comes along with these mental illnesses, because one of the biggest symptoms of depression is inability to do anything.
When you're having depression and all that, people will be like, "You have depression? Seriously? You just look fine."
Exactly.
And so you never know the number of nights that you might have cried in your bed, and the next day morning, because you have to go to work, you're just putting all those concealers and everything, and then coming out to work like a bright girl who can handle all the weights in the world. So you are putting up a show for people to not see you weak and not see you depressed. That doesn't really mean that someone is not depressed. And also there's something called high functional depression, where people are actually doing all the tasks and doing meeting all the requirements, and are head on their work and everything, and very dedicated. But they are also depressed.
Yes.
So this is like it's not like they not have bad days. They have the bad days, but they're still somehow trying to function, draining out all those energies. So when you are also someone who's doing extra, so you're sometimes feeling, "Oh, you're doing your work so good. How can you be depressed?"
Yeah.
That's another
Yeah.
misconception.
Yes.
One other misconception that I feel is when you go and tell that you're, probably, you might not tell it, but you might look stressed a little bit. And the immediate response that comes is, if you had known to manage your time better,
Oh my god.
you wouldn't be stressed or in this
Yeah,
place
yeah,
ever.
Yeah.
So this I feel is not okay, because see, different people have different levels of handling stress.
Yeah, yeah.
Not everybody will be made the same way like everybody else. Not all our 5 fingers are different in sizes. So are humans. So you can't ask someone who's not accustomed to handling so much stress to handle a very high level project or whatever. You might want to put them up for collaboration. So these are ways you have to work around. You can't say we all have only so much time in a day. Maybe someone is
Oh,
feeling.
that is like every time I hear it, I'm like, oh my god. So there was a time, I think you know it better. I was like very new to this whole corporate and all
Right,
of that,
yeah.
and I had to be in a very high stressful environment when I started off my career.
Right.
So I go to this person and I'm like, hey, this is a problem. I'm like extremely stressed. I've been delivering really good work, but help me with this. Help me transition to this. I'm on a call with that person, and I am literally on the verge of tears.
Okay.
And this person goes, I have no time for this. And this was a person I was actually looking up to when I started my
Right.
career. But
Right.
then it is true. Time is one thing, but how you are managing your time is completely another.
But there's also stigma around discussing mental health, right?
Yes.
I'm someone who keeps my personal life and professional life completely away, separate. I don't sit down and talk about what my problems are or who are in my family.
Yeah.
I might put a post on Instagram, but that doesn't necessarily mean I have to have a discussion about what I posted with you as a person or with a group of people. I'm not comfortable because the main reason is your pain is just another story for somebody else.
Very well said. That is true.
So it becomes like a point for a gossip. And also in a office, in a workplace, rumors can spread so quickly. Your version of story, by the time you hear it back from somebody else, it would be completely a different narrative. It's not what you meant also sometimes. So I think it's not right for you to share your personal whatever it is. And also that's one thing. And the second reason is it makes you like a mysterious person. So she's just coming into the office, doing her own work. She never really talks. She never discuss. She never opens up. So what's up with her? What happens in my life, like you said, is not anybody else's business. If I'm not comfortable sharing, I'm not comfortable sharing it with anybody, and
I
try
want
to keep
people to be more uncomfortable sharing it.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
I know you know this person for a really long time. I know he or she is your, favorite person at office and all of that.
Yeah.
But don't.
You can't control how people are going to talk about in different places. So the best thing you can do is just shut your own mouth, mind your own business, keep your head low, and do your work.
Yes.
Never trust that your co-workers are going to be your friends or anything.
Yeah.
For me, a friend is not a friend until if I don't feel like I can call them at 2 a.m. and discuss to them about what I'm going through. Or maybe I call them at 2 a.m. and tell that I'm hospitalized, can you come and help me?
Yeah.
You mentioned about Inside Out, but there will still be some favorite movies that helps you better understand mental health or depression. Do you have some favorites in your line?
So I watch the most fucked up movies ever made by mankind. So I don't actively go out to look for like favorite mental health kind of movies. I just like watching movies that makes you go, what the hell was the director thinking? How did the filmmaker even come up with that kind of like level in screenplay and writing, the human psychology of it all? So one of this example, I'm not sure if your video is gonna be taken down by this, but is Old Boy, one of the most amazing, well-written Korean movies by this director called Park Cho. Beautiful movie. He also directed Handmaid's Tale. So basically, Old Boy is about incest.
Right.
But the layers of human emotion in which he sandwiched it all, this one taboo of a topic, was so beautifully written and well taken.
Right. My all-time favorite, it will be hard to say it's a favorite series because it is very deep, is BoJack Horseman.
Oh my god.
I had the courage of rewatching it
Oh,
also.
wow.
So I watched BoJack Horseman almost 3 years back when it was, the last season was coming out, and that was the time I got to know about BoJack Horseman. And I was skeptical about animated movies, animated series, and all that. That's the first animated series I ever watched. And there is so much depth in every character that I started feeling that I have parts of me in a Princess Carolyn or in BoJack or in Diane. But one person I can't associate it is with Mr. Peanut Butter. I can never associate myself with him. There are just certain people who can be so happy all
and
the
nice,
time.
but they're
They're just happy all the time. Like I'm like, how are you so happy? What do you eat in a day?
definitely not peanut butter.
So peanut butter is one character that I can't associate
The
with.
beauty of BoJack Horseman is that every character is grey,
Yeah.
not black and white.
Yeah.
They are not good, they are not bad, they are grey. That's why you see themselves in you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
When I watched it for the second time, it just hit me in a different level. I don't know, maybe because after it's been 3 years that you watched, and you might have gone through so much in your life in the meantime. You might have your intellect would have just blossomed on all these 3 years. So you are watching it from a different point of view.
Yes.
And I started noticing even the artwork that are put in the background. They also add meaning to the scene. So I felt so low after watching BoJack Horseman. I took like a week to think, what am I doing with my life? Or I took a week to understand me first after watching that series. So that's one of the classics that I watched.
Dark, but yes.
Yeah, it is dark, but people should give it a try.
Definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
it gives you an understanding of what it is. Not like directly telling, okay, this is what depression is, this is what anxiety is. But when you have different characters portraying all of those emotions in different way, you get a sense of what it is.
Yeah, I think cinema should be more open to these grey, morally not right, not wrong characters. Take them as they are. Not put them in a box.
I hate rom-coms, okay? I don't know why. I just hate rom-coms. Seeing a rom-com makes me depressed.
If I want to cry, I do watch rom-com.
Yeah. So I cry. I'm so emotional as a person. I can't watch family drama. I can't watch rom-com because it makes you feel so emotional.
We do watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
Yeah, we do watch because you want to consume something where you don't have to apply your mind. So that kind of content is Keeping Up with Kardashian, where you just have to sit and see those people do their own thing. You don't have to think what's happening in the plot and all that. So
they are the plot.
Yeah, so it's just it's like almost like how we consume junk content in our brains, just like that. So
it's like a burger for your everyday healthy diet. It's nice.
I find comfort in watching crime documentaries.
Yeah, apparently. So I don't know if it was in my Instagram feed. People who watch crime docuseries, they are closer to being psychopaths, apparently.
Okay, so I am closer.
The amount of crime documentaries you watch, as if you're gonna do one, or somebody's gonna do it to you.
No, see, including crime documentary and How to Get Away with Murder. Now I know how to perfectly execute a murder. I can write a How to Murder Someone guidebook also after watching so much of this content. These things keep me engaged. These things are nice to watch. Sometimes when you're depressed or sometimes when you're not being okay, it is hard for you to concentrate on what's going on in a film. It's easy for people to say, why are you just not watching anything? You can just put up a movie and literally watch anything. But it's so hard to watch something on TV and apply your mind, because your mind is just wandering everywhere else. So it's hard that way.
So I know it's getting bad when I doom scroll. You keep scrolling mindlessly, your finger automatically moves. I hate my partner for this when he says, the content that you consume, they make you for what they are. So when I doom scroll, it's in the back of my head, okay, I am actually consuming junk, but I just can't stop because it keeps me distracted. It takes me away from that very moment.
Right. Do you ever have a feeling of emotional burnout at work? Is that actually a thing, having emotional burnout?
Burnout, not really, because like I already told you, I got burnt very quick, literally at work, by a lot of expectations that I set for myself and all of that. And I realized, okay, emotions, this is like a no entry zone. So do not bring your emotions into the corporate world. You are never going to win like that. You and I are marketeers. We are in this creative world, and there is this expectations of we have to be putting out a lot of creative ideas out there. Everything that you do, copy, video, caption has to be coming out like in a very good creative manner, and being the overthinkers that we are, it has to be perfect. So I got burnt out creatively very quickly because what I put out gets altered in like 100 different ways, not necessarily in a way that I want sometimes. So you are like, okay, my work is not actually hitting the light and expectation. So the bar that I set was pretty high for even for myself, but the constant need to hit that bar, right? That kind of burnout.
Emotional burnout when you talk, no? Maybe you just feel like your talent is not being used, or you're just in the wrong place. Maybe I should try something new for me, or maybe I need to change my domain.
Yeah.
Anywhere, it's not just at work, okay? Anywhere, in any sphere of your life, if you feel you are not, actually you want more or something like that, then if you're there in that situation again and again, then you are going to have emotional burnout. She's so talented, or she can perform so much, and only to those people they will give all of those work.
Yeah.
So it's a trust that comes from the management too, that wants you to do well. And for me as a person, I like taking up that stress. Yeah.
I don't see it as trust, Harshni. I see it more of a again execution, or
Yeah.
you are one person who's very good at work, there is another person. Naturally, if I were to pick a person to do the project or whatever, I will automatically choose you regardless of whatever position that you are in,
Right.
because I want the work to be done really well.
Right.
So is it trust or a little bit of getting what we want, is still a blurry line.
My manager just trusts me so much. He's not there in the team anymore, but I was so new to the team, and I go with the bizarre ideas, and then we will have a healthy discussion on what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And he will have his own criticism on what I'm saying, and sometimes I'll be like, yeah, this man is making sense. Sometimes I'll be like, no, I don't think that's right. So I put my point forward, and for him to let me do what I want, and because it was at a larger scale, whatever I was planning. So and it was completely new for that entire product and everything. For him to let me do it,
Yeah.
he trusts me that I'm a good performer, and the second thing is that he knows I will execute it. You will know that, okay, certain people will execute it. Sometimes it comes with experience, but when trust comes in, when you're going with a bizarre idea and your manager is
Yes.
like, okay, you can pull it
Yeah.
off. There was just no interference at all. Whenever I needed some kind of a guidance, I would go to him, and then he would give me some suggestions. And if there are any problems, I just have to go to him for updates. I don't have to tell him anything else. When we're talking about emotional burnout, I realized that I was using work to fill up certain voids, and I started realizing it after doing so much work. So there was this time I was doing a lot of work. I was having so much work piled up, and like I enjoy doing it. It's just that I was so much involved in the creative process and ideation and how we can shoot it and all of that, and it kept me so busy. But what happened is, once it got over, now I'm left with, what am I supposed to do now? Like you said, we have set a bar for ourselves. We have done this. Now, if you want to do something else,
It has to be better.
it has to be better. You
Yeah.
can't do the same thing
Yeah.
all over again, because I just want to while away my time and prove that I'm just working. So it's actually quality over quantity. So now you're just left with nothing. Now, like,
Yeah.
what should I do with my life now? So that was one instance, and the second instance was, every time you finish a very hectic event, you come back to your hotel room. There's so much silence in that room. Your leg is aching, your back is aching. You're just lying, in your back, and you don't feel joy.
Yeah.
You don't feel happy. You feel like, okay, yeah, it went well, it executed, but naturally your mind is just processing what are the pros and cons of that event, what could have been better, what should have not been done. So you analyze it for like 10 minutes, and then you're just done. So after that, when people just come and tell you also, no, that you did a great job, then you're just so like, oh yeah, okay, thank you. It's not that you're being humble. It's just that you don't feel like it,
Yeah.
like a celebration. Once I finish a campaign, my next immediate thought would be like, what should I do next? Yeah.
I think we are living in the fastness of it all and not in the moment. We
Yeah.
don't give ourselves the opportunity to take it all in.
Yeah,
We're just like, okay, we're staying here a little too longer, we need to go to the next one.
Right.
The hurriness of it all. But circling back to what you said about emotional burnout, Harshni, validation, right?
Right.
I was hungry for it, like in whatever forms. I'm talking to a very narrow set of people who do not have the financial responsibility to take care of their parents, and other commitments.
Right.
So money is not a thing. The next comes validation from our higher ups, and then it doesn't satisfy you. So
Okay.
what else? Is it exposure? Am I not getting the right kind of eyes on me? So all these set of validation, you kind of turn your work to get that light of validation.
Mm-mm.
So I think I hit a point there, and I don't know how, but there was this beautiful verse from Gita that found me. It's just that you do your job, you do not seek the fruits of the labor. It will just
Right.
come to you. You just do your job.
Do you feel like maybe if we had better work-life balance, we might not feel this burnt out, or we might feel a little happy?
So I think around like 3 weeks ago, Australia came up with this new law, right to disconnect. So the law basically states that if after your work hours, let's just say your work hour is like 6 p.m., you can not reply to any of the office mails, messages, and all of that. And if your employer contacts you or keeps nagging you about it, you can sue the company and the employer. Even if in India, by a huge miracle, they decided to invent this law, I don't think we'll be able to disconnect.
Yeah,
It's just in
yeah.
our work culture,
Yeah.
in India, or the East at least, in Japan and those influences in India, we are not trained to disconnect.
Yeah.
So we take the thought of work home. So you'll be watering your plant and you're suddenly like, oh my god, I wish this green color wasn't that creative. So it would have made more sense. So I don't think there is a balance. If at all you can balance something, balance your diet.
See, the one thing is when you are disconnecting from your work, no, you are often seen as a person who's not there all any time,
Yeah.
not reachable
Yeah.
or not approachable, kind of a thing. So when you are someone, even you know what, that girl is so sincere. She's even replying at 1 a.m. in the night, which is so nice. That used to be that is a
Yeah.
common perception that
Yeah.
that people would normally have. I will completely agree with what you said, that there cannot be disconnect,
Yeah.
because we are so intertwined to it. Not doing anything at all, you're lying down, you've finished your work, you come back home and you talk to your partner
Yeah.
about work only. And then when you're sitting,
Yes, I don't want to do that. So I did that. Like
Yeah.
you said, we need somebody to confide in. What better person who's outside that sphere who can say, "Oh my God, you are right."
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's our story they're listening to, but it's not a good practice.
Yeah.
Never take your work or your work information anywhere outside you and give it on to your partner, because what we are trying to do is transfer stress.
yeah.
They are power. They are babies. I mean, yes, they do have the responsibility of like providing all of that good things, but they don't have the responsibility to take care of us in a mental.
Correct.
That is inner management. That is
Correct.
our own stress management.
Correct.
So I see people like immediately calling their spouse and like, what happened?
Yeah.
Don't.
Work had become such a big part of my life, and I was this person who would work even 1 o'clock in the night. I would sit and text, and just one day before an event also, I would be so sleepless, despite of doing or working for all these years and executing so many events. Even if I have to do an event tomorrow, the night before that event is going to be so stressful for me that I would still keep thinking, what can I do better? I have to go prepared. Who are the people I'm going to meet? So how is it going to turn out? All these things just run in my head. When I stopped getting busy and when the campaigns got over, I also understood that I was kind of transferring stress to somebody else.
Yeah.
I understood, because I gave work importance so much. You can discuss work with your partner, or you can discuss what's happening in your life and what's happening at work. You can share all the gossips and all the fun stuffs, even all the serious stuffs. But what I realized is, the moment I felt that void, I prioritized that emotion over knowing how to handle it better.
Yeah. But it's not your fault.
Yeah,
A lot of
yeah.
people think it's their fault, but it's
Yeah.
not, because imagine you are only exposed to a certain thing for a very long period of your day.
Right.
Obviously, you're going to carry that after effect of it home or wherever you're going to go.
It's just about whether you as a person, or maybe a manager who's there with you, has to decide whether you are someone who is okay to handle that kind of a stress, or maybe you need helping hand, or maybe you need a much less stressful portfolio for you. So these things have to be analyzed, so that not everybody everybody is put in a place where everybody has to go through the stress.
If you ask me, Harshni, I think time as a parameter, right, should
Right.
be eliminated as a way you judge a person's productivity.
Correct.
So when you are in school, right, let's just say you and I are in like a French class, you might be better at French than me. You might score centum all the time, and I might not even pass that class.
Right.
So that's not a good measurement of how well versed I am in certain subjects. In that very essence, some people can be they can be doing on the same project, but one person can do it in 2 hours.
Correct. Yeah.
The other might need like 2 weeks time.
Correct.
But the quality, which does what is it? I mean, I'm not disagreeing that people who are working in like 2 hours or less are not producing like effective work. They might be turning out like really good quality work, but measure that. As a manager, I think it's your duty to sit and analyze how is the person's working style is.
Right.
Do we have work style assessment at office? Do we know like, okay, this person has this type of work style ethic? This is the projects that he'll be taking up. So that kind of assessment should come on very first hand.
It's also the talent, no? Like some
Yes.
people have experience,
Yeah,
better experience with better talent. You're able to finish off a work that might take some other person
Definitely.
2 hours. You can do it in 2 minutes or maybe
You
2
ask
hours.
a newbie to run a campaign, obviously they'll have to go around, understand what tool I have to use,
Right.
how am I supposed to send these campaigns, like who are the email lists.
Right.
But we can just pull it out like in a minute or two.
Yeah, right.
So that level of assessment, I think, should come from a higher up. While we are discussing the disconnection, the time and the overload and all of it over a conversation, it is also a matter of life and death, because in the recent news we saw like
In EY.
Anna Sebastian losing her life of overworking. So all these news, Harshni, I only see it in like K dramas, and in the East it's like very prevalent, like people die of overwork in a cubicle and all of that. It was a news in the East. I never thought, okay, it's gonna come. It's in a news now in India that people are actually not talking about it.
Yeah.
So I read the letter that the mom wrote.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It could be anybody's mom.
Yeah.
We are based in Chennai. So Chennai is one of those beautiful cities which houses a lot of different cultures.
Right.
People from all over India come to work here, study here. So we are living away from home, and there are times when you don't actually tell your parents that you're sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just go to office.
Yeah.
You just do what you can, because the minute they know, right, they panic.
Yeah.
So the distance, you'll have to make up for that distance. You'll have to sound cheerful.
It's also very saddening to know that someone has to die for people to understand
Yeah.
and to implement. Once this incident happens, now everybody in the corporate is like, now we have to do something
Yes.
to change the mental health, some program. We have to bring in some counselors. We have to do this, that. HR team is all behind it. Why is mental well-being? Why is it not given that much important? Why is it that someone has to die for someone to feel like, okay, it is actually an issue? Unless and until a woman gets raped, nobody feels like it's a big thing. Yeah, what's it? Yeah, somebody hits you in the assaults you or something, then get over it, was the thing. Unless and until someone is raped and someone is murdered, nobody feels that it's like a thing that needs to be discussed. Nobody feels like there needs to be special laws that you have to put in for rape cases.
So if at all it was like a snowballing effect, like slowly like people catching up to it, no, it's not a snowball effect.
Yeah.
It's just like one loud bell.
Right.
That's pretty much is it. The sound like fades away in like another 1 week or two. Why people are not taking mental health seriously is because I think it's because they're not able to see it.
Right.
There is no physical wound, any affiliations to you to
Right.
see that, okay, you're suffering.
Right.
Only when people see things, they tend to believe it, right? All they see is symptoms of it. Okay, so this person is like not feeling well. I can see the eye bags. I can see they're losing weight or gaining weight. Something like that, but not everything projects itself to a physical symptom.
Right. When you are lying down with all your bones broken, then that feels valid enough for you to stay in bed.
Yeah.
But depression is almost like your mind is completely broken,
Yes.
just as much as your bones are broken. So even with your bones broken, at least you will have the willpower, or you will want to put in the effort. But someone who's going through depression would not want to put in any effort.
Yeah.
They sometimes just want to stay in bed for a longer time. People will see it as, no, not a big deal. She's okay only, You should be so thankful of the job that you have, the successful career that you have, your wealth, your money, your parents. You should be thankful for everything that the universe has given to you. And instead of being thankful, all you're doing is lying in the bed.
So even in our home, right, they don't like the word depression.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't like telling telling, my daughter is not feeling well, she's actually looking into a therapist. No, they will never say that.
Right.
So when somebody comes up to your, our aunts or uncles and say like, you're depressed, no, you're not depressed, you're just lazy. Go do something, distract your mind. My mom has this very famous solution for depression. It's just that do something.
Yeah.
Do something, anything, fold your clothes, do laundry. It helps because that's what we have been doing. We are constantly distracting ourselves with something or the other. Like you said, we keep moving forward so that we don't address the huge monster in our head.
Another criticism or another statement that just gets passed on like that is, you're only in your 20s.
Oh my God,
I'm in my 50s.
Yeah.
I'm in my 60s. I'm in my 30s. I've seen more life than you
sorry,
have.
auntie, the economy was not the same when you were 20.
In my house, we never even used to have food. So it was so difficult to get food on the table. So why are you making a big fuss about it? The thing is, back in those days, people were going through it without knowing that they were going through it.
That was their normal.
Yeah, it was a normal. You have to have these preconditions in your head that I'm from a very middle class or poor family. So that means that I'm bound to be stressful.
Yeah.
I'm bound to have mental health issues. I'm bound to always struggle.
For them, happiness was a luxury.
What are other comments that are normally being passed on
Huh.
to someone who's going through mental health issues?
You are always like that is a comment I get.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you are always like that. It's a very, like you said, a very sweet comment that somebody that you love passes on.
Yeah.
But you don't want that person to say you're always like that because you're not always like
Right.
that. It's just that bad 5 years of your life.
Yeah. Bad 5 years of your life.
So, but also being hushnis, we don't say that out loud. We don't
Right.
say, don't treat us like this. There are people, I am at awe of people who just say, treat me better,
Yeah.
give me that, except for my emotional punch bag at home. I don't use that kind of lingo to anybody.
You're better. You're worth it. You deserve everything in the world. But it is just that you don't feel like it.
Yeah.
It's just that you feel a little low. You feel bad about yourself, or maybe about what you're doing, or maybe about people around you. So it's not right to say that you're always this. You always bring up this.
Yeah.
You do this. They also use the word drama. You do this drama. Oh, now the drama starts again. I'm going to grab a popcorn, get a chair, and enjoy my drama. I am going to put up a show, so enjoy the drama.
Let me bring my crown.
Yeah, so that's one normal comment that they can just pass
The
like that.
dramatism of it all is because of emotional outbursts.
Right.
Not everybody is equipped to handle emotional outbursts.
Right.
There is a high for us, there is a low for us. So people who kind of move in the middle, they are like, okay, it's too extreme. Everybody who we see on a day-to-day basis, they are not equipped to handle our extremes, and we should not expect them to handle our extremes. So again, inner management of handling our extremes is very important. But when somebody is with you for that long, you would expect them to
Right.
pick it up.
Right.
Say, okay, I know that you're getting hither, let's understand what's like overstimulating your head, like what is the problem.
But don't you think this maturity that with which you're talking right now is a result of whatever you've been through all these years?
Definitely.
Because in the initial stage, you would not have this much understanding first as a person of what you're going through, and secondly, I also want to give the benefit of doubt to people who are all around us, because when you're not able to understand about your own mental health, then it wasn't even that big of a deal that time, and there was not much awareness. So it was a little unfair right now, I feel, for you to expect also for them to understand you, understand what you're going through, instead of passing all these very dark comments at you. So I'm just going to give them the benefit of doubt. Still, okay, fine, you didn't understand, you were not in that maturity to understand what I was going through, and I was not in the maturity to analyze myself and balance myself. So it's just that we both were not able to understand it, and now that we are over it, let's now try to understand each other better.
So I tend to isolate myself a lot.
Okay.
I can be like so involved in your life, and I will fall off from the face of this earth.
Right.
I might not like get back to you, but I love you. I'm not.
You need your own time.
The energy I need to deal with you, to talk to you, not even deal with you, that's a very wrong thing to say. It's to talk to you, to sit down with you, to open myself up to you. I just don't have it.
Right.
But you do see me doing a lot of other stuff, and you are like, you can do all of this but not talk to me. Yeah, because those things I don't need to put my mind, heart and soul. you do. I need to do that to you, so give me that time. I don't know what happened. Everything became transactional after a point in life.
No, I think we are putting that stress on ourselves.
True.
We are going on that self-guilt trip,
Yeah.
saying, I have, isolated myself a lot. Maybe they will not like me anymore. Maybe
Yeah.
I should make it up to them. I think that's in our head. But, who are your true friends, no? You might not talk to them even for
Yeah.
2 or 3 months. After 3 months, you just call them and they somehow pick up the call.
Yeah.
You start off like you were all, together all the 3 months. That's good friendship.
The fear of so people who isolate themselves pretty often, right, they don't expect to come back and see everything the way it was. They know there are a lot of changes happening. So as a serial isolator, I know that when I come back and get myself back into that groove, I know things have changed. So it's been on and off for me like that.
I like being by myself. Like, you know me, I'll not hang out with a lot of people. And even at lunch, I'm just having my lunch by myself.
Actually, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So there was this another Instagram was my source of education right now. There was this doctor or some dude who was like, you eat alone. If you eat with people you don't like, it's not good for your digestion. It's
Those people are not good for your life. A lot of people are thief of your joy.
Yeah.
So the best thing you can do is try to avoid as many people as you can.
I the mentality like people are out to get us and all of that, right?
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
there for
Yeah,
me
yeah,
for a long time because they see us,
Yeah.
they know us, they
Yeah.
talk about us, but at the same time I realized they are people.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
You've softened yourself a little bit.
Yeah, they are people. I know they are also dealing with their fair share of hurt. They are humans just like me.
When
Yeah.
I want to do my lunch alone, I don't hang out with a lot of people outside of work. And I'm even when I go for the events and all of that, after that I'm just so tired that I just want to go back and sleep in my
Yeah.
room. So I'm just like that as a person. Okay, when someone comes in the lunch hall with a plate, who I know sits right in front of me, that part.
After this, I don't think anybody at work is coming to sit next to you.
No, I will. Now that I'm a nice person. Yeah. So now that I'm a nice person, so I might not show it to them, but I'll still be like have a
So
conversation.
that's one small window we get for ourselves.
Yeah. But on contrary, I see a lot of people enjoying lunches in teams,
I know.
and sometimes
they
you feel
wait
bad.
for them.
Yeah,
they,
yeah.
let them go to the hand wash, and I'm like, wow, yeah, the level of Ingalveet and Karthikeya is
Yeah.
like too much. But I'm happy. I'm happy
It's
that-
like, let's go to the bathroom together. Let's go to the PT period. It's like that. I see that a lot, and then I'm like, why am I not like that? When I'm put in situations, where I am supposed to mingle with a lot of other human beings, it gets very stressful for me. It's not like I'm an introvert. It's just that I'm selectively extrovert. You have to understand that.
I think it's also because they don't match our energy.
I have now mastered the art of faking. Before, I was very on the face, direct. This is what I feel. If I
Yeah.
don't like that person, I will turn my face away and go, and then I'll be like, "Oh my god, I feel so bad about her," and all of that. Okay. But now, if I don't like the person, I'm extra nice with them. I can hold their hand and then be like, "Oh, so how are you? Oh my."
Please be careful next time Harshni holds somebody's hand.
So now that I told it in the camera, and I'm gonna avoid holding hands
For next 6 months.
for the next 6 months, so people will forget about this video and start that trend again.
Yeah.
So I can fake literally everything now.
Yeah.
I'm hurt about something. I can fake that I'm happy. I'm not okay with some person. I can still have a conversation with them, but I have a time limit for it. I can fake only for 1 hour. See, I'm telling you this after a lot of assessment that I've done on myself.
According to my research.
Yeah, according to I can only fake for 1 hour.
Yeah.
Okay, after that I feel out of place.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of people sitting together having fun, talking about life and stuffs and gossips and something. I can feel disconnected in a moment.
Yeah.
I can't associate with them. But whereas if I'm with 1 or 2 people that I love, then I don't mind spending all the day with them. I don't even have to do anything. I can be just as dumb or as ugly as I can be, but I can just be with them. I prefer only those people.
Yeah.
You've seen these memes where you have this large crowd, 1,000 people standing, and on the top the meme reads,
Yeah.
you want that hug only from that one person in that
yeah.
entire crowd. I think I'm that kind of a person.
Good. Everybody's journey is different. I
Yeah.
think in my journey, Harshni, like how you said, there is like certain set of people and you're extra nice. I kind of, how do I put this? No longer see people.
Yeah.
I see thoughts, visions, and images. So when one person is like saying something, I only try to extrapolate whatever they are saying. I no longer associate it with the person. And I had one of my biggest fall in career wise around like 6 months ago. So I am like,
You know how you started that sentence? So I had this biggest fall, and I was hoping, you know, in maybe 2010, 2011.
no, I was in college. I was in school in 2010.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm relatively young, but I already had my big fall.
Yeah.
So that kind of, you know, how you fall and you hit your head.
Yeah.
I woke up like a saint. So I no longer see good people, bad people. Okay, this person, that person. I see more of you know what I can do next for myself. Yeah, how can I move forward by myself, for myself.
Yeah.
So people they come and go. Obviously, I do see all these big friends group and all of that. They are irrelevant to my mission. They are like in their own quests. I'm happy, but my main quest does not like require these. You know.
Yeah.
So it shifts.
When you said right that when I see people, I see their thoughts, I see their vision. When I see people behaving bad, or when I see people losing their mind, I will just be, you know, why are they doing this?
Yeah.
Maybe they would have had this journey. You have seen so much in life, and when you have seen your friends go through a lot, and now that you are a little knowledgeable about what's happening, you become a little kind to other people.
being kind is one of the most hardest.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah.
Very hard.
Yeah.
I don't know how Jesus Christ was so kind. Maybe that's the reason why he is who he is,
Yeah.
but it's very kind.
Yeah.
Being very kind is extremely hard, Harshni, especially when all your life you have not been exposed to that level of kindness. It's
Right.
very hard to recreate.
Show that kindness
Exactly.
when you don't feel what kindness is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how it is to be soft and always in that state, that aggressive, you need to go out, be all out. So when you do tone down, when you are in your own feminine, soft energy, the world looks different.
Yeah.
People around you look at you different, and you don't know how to give that back. So
It is very courageous, no, when someone
Yeah.
has gone through so much and then they're still able to keep that kindness
Yes.
part of them intact inside them and still shower that on others. That's important. Sometimes when you are going through all the struggles, you lose that part of
Yeah.
you. You kind of become rude. I was this person close to maybe 10 years back. I was very rude. I would be on the face, and then I would there was this time I remember in the starting of my career. So that somebody would just say something, and then I'd be like, you better watch your tone, huh? You better mind you. I think you're wrong. You don't have any rights to talk about. So
Yeah.
this is my tone. So I was this girl in Big Boss. So, Hindi Big Boss. So I was like that. But after I met few people, and after I understood what it means to be loved and what it means to show love, I learned it from them, because I'm not used to love. I was not used to love. I was not used to being pampered. I was not used to being cuddled, or
Yeah.
given all that abundance of everything in life. I was not used to that. That kind of made me rude all my life.
I think it's what every person with mommy and daddy issues like. So all of our lives we want to look up to this one protector.
Yeah.
We write letters to those protector figure who is non-existent. We want them to come into our life,
Right.
protect us from whatever evil that is, but they never show up.
Right.
Life is all about realizing you are what you want.
Right.
So down the line, you take on that role.
Okay.
If at all somebody else would be here, would they let that other person speak to me like this? No. So I will be rude to them. You
Right.
protect yourself.
I think over time, it's easy to be aggressive and rude. I realize that it's
Yes,
easy to be
yes,
aggressive and
yes.
rude, and it's very hard to be passive,
Yeah.
and to not speak about what your emotions are, and to hold it on to yourself and try to balance it and try to deal everything by yourself. I think that's hard. It's very easy to burst out
Yeah.
and shout at a person and say, you know what, this is why you hurt
It
me.
gives you that sudden release of
Yeah.
emotions. You're like, okay, finally, I let it all out.
Right.
Emotional regulations, when you keep it and analyze, sit with your own feelings,
Right.
face yourself and understand, why am I like this? Why did I even get to the point? That level of self-actualization is hurtful.
Right.
Because you'll be calling out a lot of your own bullshit.
Right.
So that requires a lot of time.
There are also times that I felt maybe women out there should not have to lose their innocence so early in their lives.
Yeah.
You don't have to get so matured. You don't have to be this super woman that has to handle everything in life. Although it seems very fancy, even when people come out and call you superwoman, she can pull off anything. It doesn't matter what life puts her through, or she's depressed or she's happy, she can still pull off. I don't think that's a credit that you can give. I think that's a, if some woman has to go through that, no, to be a superwoman, I think that's a disgrace on the society.
Yeah,
I feel when you're a career oriented woman, or when you're just this, so called superwoman, you know how life will be. You're going to work, okay, you have to pull off a lot of things, you have to survive there. You have to handle a lot of issues that that a woman might face at work, and you have to know how to navigate through them very smartly without disrupting your career. So you are balancing work, and at the same time you also have to shine through it. You have to sit and ideate, how do I make something better. So that is one stress, okay. Then you again come back home, you have to make sure the house is clean, you have to go cook for yourself, and then you have to attend to whatever it is. And then by the time when you go back to sleep, you will still have a little bit of work that is left. You will have some movies that you might want to watch, and then again the cycle repeats. And in the middle of it all, you from arranging a plumber to a carpenter to getting someone to fix the house, everything is on you. I think it's too exhaustive and overwhelming. Because imagine, okay, you're so tired, you're coming back, and you're mentally tired, physically tired, and on top of it, you have to manage everything at house, and make sure that and you have random people walk into your house who's a carpenter who you might not know, who you have called, somehow arrange them to come and fix things for you at your home. And as women, we have to agree that with a lot of news that are going around, we will feel a little unsafe when we are the only people who are alone at work doing things at home. We feel a little unsafe. Do you ever feel like there are certain emotional support that you can get to make your mental health better?
Hobbies. I go out and I knit, I paint, I write. It's like a thing that I keep myself, self-expression. I think that starts out by when you start putting something outside the world. I heard one of the creator say something like creativity without business is actually victimization, and business without creativity is a fucking waste of time.
If you're just at home, okay, you ask Alexa, so Alexa, what are the 10 things I can do so I can make myself feel better? So she is going to tell those 10 things, right? Person who is there with you should not be like an Alexa.
Like that. Okay.
Someone who is going through something in life, they need constant attention. We will not come out and probably ask that, I need this help, I don't want to be superwoman anymore, I'm going to drop all my bags and lie on you, just take care of me. We all want to do that, but we will not do that. So I feel that assurance only comes when they're physically right in front of you. You might, you if you have to just be away from them, you feel bad, and it feels like you're talking to Alexa sometimes. So someone who is going through it, they need someone constantly. And someone who's there for someone who's going through it should be up for it. You have, because it's not going to be all roses, because there will be thorns in the road. Whether you're up for taking it is something that you have to decide. Maybe for the family circle or friends, whoever are supporting them, they should be more understanding, more kind, and more about. Sometimes what happens, it becomes like why do you have to do this? It's not necessary for you to do this. But sometimes it's just necessary for me to do it. Like, for example, when I was hospitalized, I am Zeptoing dry shampoo, and I'm lying in my bed, and then I'm applying dry shampoo.
It's funny now.
Yeah, it's funny.
Not funny then.
Yeah, and when people around me, they're like, they literally told this, okay, you're not even able to sit. Why do you need a dry shampoo now? I said, because it makes me feel better. Because I feel like when I take care of myself, I feel better. So I want to do it. And there will be all these judgments that will come about, okay? And after the second day, they just started laughing when I was applying moisturizer. who in the world, As in,
No, I just picture you doing that.
yeah, would be like, and then when somebody is coming to visit me and all, then I'm telling that give me like 5 minutes or 10 minutes hint before they're coming so that I can make sure I'm proper, my hair is proper, I'm sitting, I'm very, I like it. I like to take care of myself. I like to do things that I want to do, because that's the only thing I do for myself is, getting things I like and doing all these skincare and self-care stuff. That's all I do for myself, nothing else, okay? So it just becomes, so you feel so bad for people, passing those judgments when you feel like somebody is not in a position to do that. The one thing that you can do is either lend a helping hand. One thing that you shouldn't be doing is passing bad comments or judging them for whatever they want to do.
I think you're setting up trends in dry shampoo. I think dry shampoo companies should take note of this and they should like put this as a vertical and go after hospital patients.
Yeah.
So judgments are they're gonna be there. It's always gonna be there because when you see something that does not align with your belief,
Because it's not conventional.
it's not conventional. Obviously, there are going to be words.
Yeah.
There's a reason why bad PR exists. There is a reason why the self-care industry is well and thriving because it feeds on our need to be better.
Right.
But what will happen if we all decide we are already better?
That's one thing about depression, that sometimes what happens is you will feel like you've crossed that thing, but there are certain emotional
Yes,
triggers that
yes.
still exist.
Yeah.
So some pain, that the traumas that you've had in your life,
Definitely.
I will picture it like a black hole. That the pain is like a black hole, and all you're trying to do all this while is somehow reinvent yourself and make yourself more equipped to circle around the black hole so that you don't get absorbed by it and die into it.
But I think when you want to really heal, you need to let that black hole suck you.
No, but I'll tell you what, that black hole will never go. It's going to be there in your life. Pain is going to be there because see, you would have had so many traumas in your life. That is going to be a part of you. That's what made you today.
Yeah, but the trauma, right? They are like they're not scars. They are scars over a period of time, but they're at the end of the day, they started off as an wound.
Correct.
And wounds heal, and I think they become like scar of some form.
That's what I meant when you're saying no, that all these traumas and pain in your life, it's always going to be a part of your life
Yeah,
in any
definitely.
form.
Yeah.
So it can be a wound, it can be a scar. Sometimes a scar can turn into a wound because of some emotional triggers that you have had. It's like it's not like, okay, now that I'm happy for 2 months, it doesn't mean like I might not go back into the same phase, because it's very tricky to completely get through it. And it's hard for people. Oh, you know what, you're fluctuating, your mood is fluctuating, 2 months you're okay, 2 months you're not okay, seems to be valid enough when it comes from the other person, because they're there with you, and then they've been through all this thing, and it'll be tiring for them also. But when you have to talk for people who are going through all of these things, there are certain emotional triggers, there are things that will kind of take you back to the place that you were. And it's very hard again, it's like house of cards. It's like, so for all these 2 months I've been building the cards so much, trying to somehow just gobble it all in and be good and be okay, and suddenly there's some emotional trigger and that entire house just gets disrupted right in front of your eyes. It's more depressing.
Cards, they don't stand the test of wind.
Yeah.
People will start to realize, okay, if at all I'm going to build something like a house of cards, I need to make my card from metal.
Yeah, you can't make the house with cards anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You will stop picking that up. So I
Right.
think, like you said, while we are like circumventing that black hole, one point the black hole is going to suck you, you're going to
Right,
fall.
right.
But once you go through it, it will be not as bad. We are going to have so many black holes. There are so many emotional triggers in life that, like you very rightly said, the scar can become a wound again.
Yeah.
So what will you do? This time, you will be able to dress it better.
After growing into the women that we are today, what I realized is more than prioritizing how I feel, I think about what the other person feels. I think it started because of all of those things that are being
You
said to
just
you.
defined selflessness.
In the beginning, when you're going through all of those things and you get all these bad comments or very hurtful comments from the people you love and who are around you, telling it's not valid enough for you to be like this. So what it does is, the next time you're not comfortable enough to go and talk to them again about anything in your life, you hide a lot of things, you contain it in a bottle, keep it within you. You will kind of appear as a person who's so open and talks about everything, but your 90% that you're putting it out is just a show for people to think that, okay, no, she's sharing everything, kind of thing. But you hold a lot of darker parts inside you, hurtful parts inside you, and you build a wall around you, where you feel like the transformed version of you thinks more of other person, thinks like, how we ask, sorry, can I call you now, I'm so sorry that I'm disturbing you, I'm so sorry I'm texting you at this moment. All these sorry things, I think, comes because of what we have been told, and how harshly we have been, all those comments that have been passed on to us. After a point, we feel like we are being a burden to other person.
Yeah.
We start thinking like, no, even if I'm not able to do it, I still have to do it, because I will put my weight on that person, which I'm not supposed to. My emotional trauma is not anybody else's this thing to handle. I should handle it myself. But one point, you cannot be a doctor and a patient at the same time.
Definitely.
So you still need that support,
Yeah.
but you're so afraid.
The stigma about mental health, how it was 10 years ago, it's not the same anymore. I mean, it can be better, but has been very better, and it's gradually improving. People are welcoming. People are actually kinder on the internet than in the real world,
Right,
if I'm being
yeah,
honest.
yeah.
So there is a shift happening, but it's a world out there. It's the same way. It's a universe in your head. The
When you
constant.
see people like Deepika or Samantha or even Didi who share posts, about
Yeah.
their recovery and about how they're how it was bad for them and how they're recovering. You see them live on screen crying. It feels nice that
Yeah.
you are able to. Okay, it's not just you're not alone. More than you definitely have to seek professional help when needed, which will normally happen like once in a week, kind of a thing. But in that 1 week's time, no, you still need a medium, you still need a place. I realized it very late in my life that by being alone, you're only self-inflicting. It's not helping you in any way. Just imagine, okay, if you're not someone who has to do everything by yourself and be alone and take care of stuffs, then if there are days that you're not feeling well, suddenly there's just a family get together, there's just a family function happening, or you just have your family sitting together and talking, or even your friends. You have a lot of people coming into your place, and you're going out and all of that. That really helps, Harshni. When I was mentioning about this black hole thing, no, how we learn to navigate through it. One way is building momentary happiness one after the other, so that it ultimately you believe that it will lead you to the eternal happiness. It doesn't exist. There's no something like you will be happy all the time, but at least a better place than you are right now. So that momentary happiness, no, for that to happen, it is very easy if you have that person who's supporting you to bring out that momentary happiness. Maybe take you out, maybe spend a lot of time with you, give you a lot of attention and all that. That will really help. If your family is there, if you have friends, if they're checking up on you, if they're trying to make something good for you, they're able to understand you. Sometimes you don't want to go out and have that fun, then they try to do something which you are okay with. I read this book called Living Untethered. It is by Michael Singer.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a very beautiful
It
book.
is.
He starts the book by describing how everything happening in the present is a effect of what happened in the past. If you're someone who's been bitten by a rattlesnake, the next time you're going to see a couple of ropes hanging here and there, or belts in your bedroom, and it appears to be like a snake, you will fear to death to even go near it and touch it. If the rattlesnake is the trauma that you've been through, or the hurt. Depression doesn't happen from nowhere. It is not like one day event. It happens because you've been bottling up so much hurt all your life, and suddenly all of it is starting to act up, and it's continuously happening to you for a long time. That's when depression comes in. So all your traumas are rattlesnakes. The way you see it is the fear that comes with it. It's not like we're competing against each other. It's like we're working together as a team. It relies specifically on the manager in the way they put everybody in places of power and position and all of that. How he or she is able to make the team gel together. It doesn't happen because you take them out for dinner or anything. Most of the times, at dinners you're just having again the same old one or two conversations with people, or that inner circle in the entire larger team. But it happens on a very daily basis, where even your teammates are so encouraging. Like my teammates right now, they are the best. Okay, I'll tell you why. Because everything that you do at work, it doesn't feel like you're doing to prove yourself, and they all are like your cheerleaders. If one of us are doing some campaign or anything, we make it a point to go up to them and tell them how much we loved it. My team does it so beautifully.
I want corporates actively getting involved in assessing people.
Right.
Do not give your people who are starting off work, be it experience or not experience. Let's not start them off with like projects that you want to take up. We always have this thing where no, hey, there's an intern, maybe they can do this redundant job. No, your intern needs to be assessed because they are in, but they are not actually in. So let's assess them for who they are in terms of work, like what is their work personality. So after that, put them in a team that will gel well.
Yeah.
So why do people keep like leaving managers? It's because we are not able to find a manager who works really well with our work style. Like you said, the freedom certain managers give you, the trust certain managers. Some managers would like to know why this is being done. Managers who are descriptive in certain sense. So there are people who like to give updates on a regular basis.
Right.
So the person who likes to give updates can gel really well with a manager who likes updates.
Right.
But are we finding that fit?
Another one I realized is that you can't go seek for happiness.
Do not seek happiness.
Yeah,
Happiness is a momentary dopamine shot.
Great philosophers that I would say of all times. I really love him. Jiddu Krishnamurti. He,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
he is amazing.
Yes.
He and it was in the times that we talking about psychology. Everybody who had depression were termed as mentals.
Yeah.
He was a philosopher at that point in time, and there are so many books that he has
Krishnamurti's
written.
eyes.
Legend. Yeah,
His
his
eyes are so mesmerizing. I have never.
His oration. Have
Yeah,
you listened
yeah,
to his
yeah,
speeches?
yeah,
It's very. He's very crisp and clear in what he has to say. His delivery is perfect, and the language he uses, his English is amazing, and so his books are so deep.
Yeah.
So you know what there was one of the books I read, and in that he had said the primary source of disorder in ourselves is because we are seeking for a reality that was promised by the other.
Yeah. Beautiful. J. Krishnamurti has a way with words.
Yeah. This also comes in Doctor Strange, where the ancient one says that you cannot beat a river to submission. You have to submit to its current and use its power as your own.
Rick and Morty, they even say that you're a fool if you chase happiness.
Yeah.
Because it's momentary.
Right. So I was a person who felt like I need to have everything figured out in life, and I felt like I was the one who was driving my life and controlling it. The moment I realized that, I felt I had a lot of ropes actually tied here, everywhere in my body, and then I was dragging it all and walking in the road. As a woman, you get this comparison very easily. Like you are only carrying 4 bags. Did you see the other person? They're carrying 10 bags. So which means their struggle is more than yours. So you should be happy that you're at least not struggling as much as they are. That's not the right way. Like everybody's sensitivity would be different. Sometimes the lows will be lower and the highs will be higher as usual. And sometimes you feel that you are at the lowest point of your life. Sometimes life even kicks you through to the even more lowest point. And sometimes as person who has gone through the lowest of the lowest, you feel like you have it all controlled under you. But the next time, you're so worn out, even the slightest low make you go to that state back again. So it's a very complicated dynamics that has. So I realized I had a lot of ropes tied to me, and I realized I'm not going to have everything tied to me anymore. I let go of all those ropes in my hand. I'm going to relinquish the need to control everything in my life. I don't have to have anything figured out at all in my life. And whatever happens. Whatever is mine will always be mine.
Yeah.
And whatever comes to me will come to me at any point in time. When I realized this, I felt a little better in place. You have to understand what you are as a person and what you are going through, what your mentality is, what your morals are. When you understand that, you realize that you don't have to control anything. You just have to be you. People who are going to like you will like you. Like if they see our episode and they still prefer to like us, they will be the best human beings in the entire world. I can suggest their names for film fairs and Nobel prizes. But yeah, so that's been the biggest policy of life.
The concept of time, once I started dissolving that, for example, I want this now for me to feel happy. The problem was not the thing that I wanted, it was that now part.
Right.
I always had this internal conflict. If I don't get it now, I will not be, happy, fulfilled, and all of that. But once I realized I don't have to get it now, even if 5 years down the line, if I'm getting it and the person who is receiving it is not actually me but someone else, me in a better form, that's still okay.
I hope it's a good eye opener for a lot of women
Yeah.
out there. And you know what? I really want them to feel that they're not alone in anything. And I want the people who are there with them to support them even more.
Yeah.
And be more kinder to them. Even if you don't know anybody, just be kind to them. If you can be that person, despite of going through so many struggles in your life, then you've already won your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't need
That's
all
very
the,
nice. Yeah.
you don't need all the wealth in your life. You don't need all the fame and everything. But if you have learned to manage your struggles yourself, but you're still able to uh, keep that empath in you intact and still able to be nice to other people, even if you have to fake it sometimes, but still do it. Okay, done. Yeah. So thank you, Ashna.
Thank you.